Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Marie Cato. At a time when Poland's defense and security are the country's and region's key priority, the president and prime minister are entangled in a political brawl over precisely how to finance those needs. Polish President Karol Nawrocki claims Germany should pay for Polish rearmament. This comes a day after he tried to block a European Union defense loan worth 43 billion euros. Nawrocki said the money should come from German reparations for Poland's World War II losses. Germany has flatly refused his earlier demands for such reparations. Nawrocki's veto has escalated the conflict with the government of Prime Minister Donald Tusk, who accused the president of jeopardizing Poland's security. Joining us now is Małgorzata Bonikowska, president at the Center for International Relations. Hello, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty details, I'll ask you to comment on this matter, but let's have a look at what President Karol Nawrocki had to say.
Germany is aware that it must pay reparations to Poland if they are truly committed to the development of the Polish armed forces, and the whole EU is. Then we can begin this process precisely with German investment, with funds from the German state budget for equipment for the Polish army and for NATO's eastern flank. That is fair. We are all considering what this process should look like. It should look exactly like this. They begin the repayment of reparations, and we take responsibility for NATO's eastern flank with additional funding from the German budget.
So what do you think of this idea? Germany many times has pointed out that the matter of German reparations for Polish World War II losses is a closed chapter for them.
First of all, I have to say, and we have to realize that this is all campaigning. We entered already in the pre-campaigning mode. The parliamentary elections in Poland are foreseen for next year, more or less spring, maybe May. So both camps, and it's very, very visible, have already started narratives which they think they bring them voters. And obviously, the issue of reparations is a very hot issue as far as the right-wing parties. And there is a support, and I have to admit, many Polish citizens think that Germany did not do enough after the Second World War to reconcile with Poland. So there is a central background for these claims. However, it could be addressed in a very different way. And that is what I think should be really done, because Germany, for the first time, is our partner and friend. And we, Polish society, doesn't fear the Germans anymore, while in the same time we have a common enemy, which is Russia, and we have a war at our eastern flank. So we could very much think about joining forces and working together, also our armies, to protect Polish eastern border, which is now also eastern border of the European Union and NATO. And Germany is inside these two blocks. So in German interest is also to protect this border. And Poland could benefit from German military resources and also money. And I admit this is a good idea to engage Germany in protection of eastern border of Poland and eastern border of NATO.
Until now, Polish defense seemed to be exempt from political infighting in Poland, with the consensus being that with a threat so big on our eastern border, Polish security cannot become a victim of this political tug of war. Is this a new chapter that will carry on until the general election period?
Well, I hope it will not be really a topic in the election campaign from the political point of view, because it should be bipartisan. It should be the security of Poland should be a consensus. And all the political forces should realize that it cannot be really as an issue just to get voters. It should be a national consensus, at least in this one single topic: national security, foreign affairs leading to more protection of Poland and generally of the European Union against enemy, which is now quite dangerous. We are not talking about peaceful times. We are at war with Russia already. Not only Poland, all the European countries, because Russia is attacking Europe in hybrid form, is attacking us in a cyberspace, is attacking us in the information space. So it's a constant disinformation campaign. So yes, the war is in Ukraine in conventional form, but at our territory, we are already attacked. So if the politicians don't admit that, they play with different arguments. While if they admit that we are at war, they shouldn't really quarrel around the security matters. They should really focus on what to do to join forces and build a consensus around right solutions to the problem. While I think it's not still the case, and it's very unfortunate that issues like SAFE or generally, military equipment and the situation in the army, it's just like a ball in the game. It's just played by both sides or all the sides, not just focusing on the topic, but on focusing on the results, on the surveys, on what kind of political capital these parties can gain. It's really very unfortunate.
Absolutely. And now that the government has announced Plan B, the money, will it be borrowed without presidential consent? And how will this Plan B worked out legally? And how will the funds be distributed? How is this going to work?
Well, first of all, let me stress that all this quarrel around SAFE is unnecessary. We are the only EU country which has this kind of a problem. Why? Because I think even the government committed a mistake because it started to play around it. It wanted, obviously, it was a big success of Donald Tusk government during the Polish presidency to the EU Council, to negotiate this program, to be able to convince the European partners that such a tool, such a financial instrument is needed. So it was negotiated, it was done, it was prepared, and it was started. It started. But in the same time, the government thought that this could be a very good element of the campaign and it could bring voters. And this was also a start of a problem because the other side thought that that's exactly they don't want to happen. They don't want Law and Justice Party, neither any other right-wing party in Poland doesn't want any success Donald Tusk has. So obviously they started to look for any alternatives or some solutions to, dismantle this success, not necessarily SAFE as a program, but success of the government of Donald Tusk. And this is why we have all this embarrassment and all this horrible debate around something which is absolutely necessary. Polish army needs equipment. And Law and Justice Party government, before Tusk, during 8 years, understood it very well and also was taking loans, even with high percentage, 6%, while SAFE is on 3.5%. So obviously we take money from outside to mobilize capital for our army. So it wasn't considered a bad thing. The purchases were done mainly in the US and in South Korea, but generally there was a consensus that it's needed. Well, we were discussing exactly what is bought, on what conditions, but generally no one was questioning the necessity of doing that. And now, when we have a SAFE program, suddenly we started a debate around the idea of taking loans, which is now presented as bad, and especially where this is the European law, which I don't really understand it because obviously Poland as an individual country doesn't have such a capacity to take loans on good conditions. We are not as good economy as the Netherlands or even Germany, that they can individually take loans on the lower level. So for Poland's interest was really to mobilize this kind of financial tool. But now it is presented by the president and also the opposition, meaning Law and Justice Party, as something negative. And I don't think it's a really a good idea, because at the end of the day, we will be left out of money for the army and for the equipment in the situation of war.
And it looks like, regardless of all this, that the EU is still willing to cooperate with the government on this matter. And I just wanted to bring in a comment from Brussels.
Poland is the backbone of the Eastern Flank Watch. We are extremely happy and we need Poland on board for Europe's security, for the security of our entire continent. So we will not enter again in political debates that are happening internally. Our position is very clear. We're fully committed to the Polish national plan. We look forward to implementing it without delays, and we're currently finalizing the loan agreement.
So we're in a situation where there is a veto, but we also have access to money, although it's in a more complicated and costly form. But in some ways, we are back at square one. The president must have known that the government will find a way to bypass his veto. So have we just witnessed some kind of political spectacle? And then, if so, what is its purpose and when can we expect some binding decisions to emerge?
Well, this is why I think it's all very unfortunate, because the truth is that the SAFE program could have been implemented since the very beginning on the basis of the agreement, because it's the decision of the government. The government can take such decisions, such as the same way like the previous government of Law and Justice Party was deciding about other loans for other purchases, as I mentioned, for the US or from the US or from South Korea. But the government decided to prepare a piece of legislation, knowing that the president will veto it. So, as I said, it's a political game. Now we are back to the square one, so the government still can implement the program. SAFE can be implemented, and I guess it will be implemented because the government definitely wants to go for it and wants to present it as a success. But the damage is done because the other side was explaining to the Polish society, to the Polish people, that that's something very bad to do. So the unfortunate thing is that it became now a political topic. No one is really looking at the details. By the way, the program is open. The list of those projects, those weapons we want to buy, it was put in public. So no one discusses this. We discuss in the public sphere the European Union, which wants to dominate over Poland, the loan which shouldn't be taken, things like that. And we have some absurd plan presented by the president's campus to play with some assets from the National Bank to be engaged for it. This all shouldn't have happened because that's not a real discussion. That's a political buzz.
Okay, Małgorzata Bonikowska, President at the Center for International Relations. Thank you so much for your insight today.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for World Talks. Thank you so much for joining us, and make sure that you keep yourselves updated with TVP World. Goodbye.